Hello, my soul brothers and soul sisters. This is the Ron Smith Investigating Show, where we separate the real from the fake, the fact from fiction, and give you the winner's edge. And sometimes we turn your water into wine. Tonight episode is going to be episode one, The Talk. Normally, when parents talk to their children, it's about their career, about school, about extracurricular activity. But today, I have a very serious conversation, and this is to have a strategy for our kids to come home alive. I have a son and a daughter, so my talk will be totally different from my former white peers. And today, we're going to talk about what you should do if you get stopped by the police. I know this is going to be a continual conversation, so I'm going to kick it off with this. One thing that I know for sure is that being a black man in America, I just have this dual consciousness. And the dual consciousness was from this book I read from Dr. W.E.D. Du Bois, The Souls of Black Folks. And basically what he was saying, being black in America is being an African American or black, and also this thing we call being an American. Knowing that when I walk through the door, people have a different perspective of me than I have of myself. I am a well-educated black man, take care of my family, et cetera, et cetera. In my community, doing community service, active in my house of worship. I do all those things that is necessary for a person considered a patriot, because I serve my country in two different aspects, as being in law enforcement and in the military, and taking care of my family, and been married for 42 years. But when I am approached, or when a person see me walk through the door, they have their own perception of me as being 6'3", close to 205 pounds, what that looks like. So I am aware of that perspective, but also I have to protect my own mental health. I understand that I need to do the things that keep me with my head up. But today we're going to focus on what you need to do when you're stopped by the police. And this is the talk that I have given over the last 40 years from different aspects. And I have talked to my children individually, my son and my daughter. Coming up, I hadn't talked to my grandson, who just got his learner's permit and on the verge of getting his license. He would be the next person that I would personally talk to. But I have given this talk to many high school students around the Virginia area. So the talk is basically that, unfortunately, I tell my students that now when you're driving, you have to have your phone in the record mode, or quickly to get to the record mode as fast as possible. And normally I would recommend that you get your GoPro that you could put on your dashboard. Unfortunately, sometimes our kids are harassed, what we used to call driving while black. And I know that's a fact because I've been pulled over, and that was something that was significant talk to me. And it's understood today, if you're a black male, that you would have some encounter, mostly negative, with the law enforcement. So I'm going to talk about some things to keep our children alive. First of all, if you do see the blue lights in your rearview mirror and the car is behind you, I know it's easy for me to say don't panic, but I know there's a surge of adrenaline, even when, I would say, a prior former law enforcement officer, I get those things, get excited about, seeing those blue lights. And I know with someone who hasn't had the training or the experience of being in law enforcement, I know that you get nervous also. And the thing about it is that I was trained as a law enforcement officer. That would be a natural response. But you might get someone who hasn't had the extensive training, and they are nervous within themselves. So, suggestion is that if you are followed by a law enforcement officer, pull to a area where you feel safe. Now, there have been a lot of discussions about you feeling safe. I know there have been a lot of incidents where, especially if you're a female, you need to pull to a area that's well lit. Normally, it's a service station or any safe area. Now, I have know there have been conflict of you're not following instructions. So, but my advice to you is to go to an area and go to a place where you feel safe. Now, if you're able to dial 911, if you feel that somebody is being aggressive towards you, do that. But go to a well-lit area. Put your hands on the steering wheel and wait for the officer's instructions. Now, I have instructed my students to start recording from that point on, which means that basically your hands are on the 10 and 2 position of the steering wheel, and then you are recording with your phone the interaction that you have. I advise you not to reach for anything. So my training and my instruction is that you have your license and your registration where you can actually get to it without having to reach over into the glove box or reach down to get it out of your purse, because that might be a situation where the officer feel that there is provocation for his quote safety. Then make sure that you follow the instruction. If he asks you for your license and registration, just give him your license and registration, and do not continue any other conversations. And what I want to talk about now is that when you have your rights, and the first 10 amendments to the Constitution talks about your rights as far as protecting yourself against the government. In this case, the police is acting in the force of the government. And I want you to do your homework and understand what qualified immunity is, because that is one of the shields that protect law enforcement, even if they're in error of their activity. Qualified immunity. Make sure you understand exactly what that means. What comes to the play right now is your Fourth Amendment rights, your Fifth Amendment rights, and your Sixth Amendment rights. Your Fourth Amendment rights, in a nutshell, is you have a right to protect yourself from unlawful searches, which means that basically do not, if a law enforcement officer said, "Can I search my car?" Search your car, which means that basically if you say yes, you have just voided your rights as a citizen. So my advice, and this is my advice because I'm not an attorney, is to tell him no, that you don't agree to any searches. Your Fifth Amendment rights is your right to remain silent, which means that basically there was a law passed a couple of years ago where if someone, law enforcement, think that you have committed a crime, they have to read you your Miranda warning. They don't have to read you your Miranda warning anymore. That was something that passed about 2 or 3 years ago. So exercise your right to remain silent. Number one, nothing that everything you say can and will be used against you in a court of law. That's the end of that preamble. And I can guarantee you 100% of the time, nothing that you say will be used as part of your defense. Everything you say from that point on will be used against you 100% of the time. And your Sixth Amendment rights is your rights to legal counsel, which means that basically you can remain silent and basically share with the officer that you would like to talk to your attorney, and get other legal advice. And that's one of the things that you should be adamant about, which means that knowing what your rights are to that point. Now, one of the things that you have to do, you have to comply with giving your identification. And reason why I say you have to, you can refuse, but at the same time, he can have custody of you until he thoroughly identify who you are, which means that could, if you give him your license, that could take a few minutes. If you don't comply, that means he could keep you there as long as he needs to find out who you are. So my suggestion, just a suggestion again, do not play games with a law enforcement officer. Do not get your situation tried right there on the spot. You would get your day in court. That is your due process, which is another right of yours. So maintain your hands on the wheel. Have your license and registration available. My suggestion is if you record your conversation, and there have been too many incidents that law enforcement do not have their body camera running. Do not, as you have a cell phone, and I know you do, you have the opportunity to play your side of what happened in this situation. Okay, now, unfortunately, it's amazing to me, and it's just my perspective, that we have within the last 18 months, over 100 black males who's been shot that have been unarmed in traffic stops. It's amazing to me where we have serial killers who have used weapons against black people, and they are arrested without incident. It's amazing to me, and that's just my point of view. Even up into the last one that, just review for the last shootings that we've had. The whole purpose of this whole interview is to keep our kids alive. So what do you do? What do you say? And how do you act when things turn sideways? Unfortunately, when you are arrested, I know they say put your hands behind your back and stop resisting. From my training, I know that is an awkward position to be in. So even the slightest uncomfortability, I've seen from the videotapes that people saying that you're resisting. So my point to you is understanding the process. And if you understand that they're going to put you in handcuffs and it's going to be uncomfortable, but try not to exaggerate or make the situation worse. Exercise your right to remain silent. If by chance you are taken down to the jail, you'll go before the magistrate. Exercise your right to remain silent. Now, when you are in the jail, the phone calls are sometimes a privilege. So that is not necessarily a right. But here's the thing that I want you to remember. There's a such things called privileged relationships. That phone call can be used against you if you don't follow my instructions, what I'm just going to say. And that means that 3 privileged relationships that I know for sure is your doctor, your pastor or your place of worship leader, and your attorney. So not your mother, not your father, but those 3 things that people that I mentioned. So if things do turn out bad and you end up in jail and you go before the magistrate, remember basically your 4th Amendment rights, which is the right to unlawful search and seizure, your 5th Amendment rights, which is your right to remain silent, and your 6th Amendment right is your right to counsel. if you have to tell someone about your situation, my suggestion, like I'm not an attorney, so I'm not practicing law, but I know this for sure, is to talk to your pastor or your temple leader or talk to your attorney, because that conversation is privilege and it cannot be used against you. This has been the Dr. Ron Smith Investigate Show. This is going to be a continuing conversation. Today, we're talking about what you need to do when you get stopped by the police. And this is episode 1. I would love to hear the feedback that you have regarding what was discussed tonight. And thank you very much. And until next time, be blessed.